public comment at fostercity.org have been provided to the council prior to the meeting.
I call this meeting to order, and
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Council members ex officio EMID directors Stacy Jimenez. I'm here. Susie Niederhofer.
Present.
Patrick Sullivan.
Present.
Phoebe Venkat.
Here.
And Mayor President Art Kiesel.
Here. Next item.
Item 4, public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please fill out a yellow speaker slip and hand it to me. Anyone who wants to provide comment on Zoom, please raise your hand during this time. We'll take in-person speakers first, followed by those on Zoom.
Do we have any?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, next item.
Item 5, City EMID Consent Calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion unless removed by a member of the Council, Board, staff, or public. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom.
Okay, does anybody want to pull anything?
Yeah, item 5.2.
5.2. Anyone else? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve for the remainder of the consent calendar.
Yeah, we want to do.
Public comment.
I did want to pull an item. Mayor Kiesel.
Oh,
5.3.
5.3.
Yeah.
Got to speak up. Okay, public comment on what is left? 1 and 4? Yeah.
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, I need a motion.
Motion to move items 5.1 and 5.4 of the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? And 5.2.
Thanks very much for an extensive report. I'm not going to try to ask too many questions. The one thing that seemed to be repeated a lot of stuff of what we're going to do for Command Central and stuff. What my question is, it didn't indicate alternative plans if, for instance, the situation is it could happen. It could happen when employees are here. It could happen when employees aren't here. Main entrances are 3rd Avenue in Hillsdale. That confident, and of course I've heard this before, where the county's going to help us, but if the county can't get in to help us, I didn't find any clear direction of alternative plans. And before I even get involved in that a little bit, I want to mention I sat on the emergency council thing for the county, and one suggestion that came up for a possibility for Foster City as well as Daly City in South San Francisco is possibly looking at it as an exit or some kind of exit on the water. So I'm open to hear your suggestions. A lot of this stuff was repeated. I know reality is a different issue here. We don't know what reality we're going to be up against, but I wasn't confident there was an alternative plan for except what we do here and what maybe the county could assist us in. And again, if it's a major catastrophe, they may not be able to even get into Foster City. So,
no, I appreciate.
Sorry for such a tough question.
Oh no, you're good. I appreciate those comments. And just to kind of give clarity on what the EOP is. So this is the base plan. This is the general 10,000-foot view of what we would do and how we would coordinate. Subsequent to that, we are planning on building annexes or incident response guides that are going to break down more of the tactical guidance on what exactly we would do and how we would coordinate specifically. The base plan is more of a framework. It's generally how we would coordinate with the county, how we would coordinate with our local partners, what alerting tools are we going to use. If there's a sheltering component, how does that look, right? And so I grew up in Foster City, so obviously there's 3 ways in, 3 ways out, right? Everything's a bridge. So I'm all for those type of considerations. I actually was at the county when you mentioned using the water, particularly with, considering, Foster City is right here out by the bridge. And so I'm all for that type of guidance, and when we build these incident response guides out and actually getting specific on how we would coordinate, tactically, whether it's with our police partners, our fire partners, or our fire department, and then our public works, et cetera. I would say, I just want to keep in
It's
mind
a
that
living document you're working on.
it's a living document, but this is the base plan. This is just that kind of the soil. We planted the soil, and we're built in the tactical guidance or the tactical response plans, the incident response guides, the annexes, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's floods, those are being built out right now. We have draft versions right now that we're reviewing and editing and going through, but this is the general framework. So, and then, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's how we do our alert and warning process, right? We align ourselves with the county in that capacity. But this is essentially a base layer. So when we talk about, how we would coordinate if we needed to use the water, do we have any backup plans? Do we have any backup EOCs? That's in our specific kind of tactical plans. And, as far as, relying on the county, I would definitely say, and I think the county would say this as well, we're empowered at the local level to ensure that we're taken care of, right? Obviously, if we need to go to the county, they're big brother, big sister in a way, right? We can coordinate and they can support us, whether it's getting sandbags, whether it's sending a wireless emergency alert. But when it comes to, every day, we're the ones that are in charge. We're the ones that are empowered to handle business at our level. And if we have to escalate up, we will. But that's something, like I said, this is a base layer.
Okay, and I noticed you mentioned there, which I was kind of excited about, that you were encouraging, and I want to see how you're going to get the message out for the residents that live here in Foster City to make sure that they have adequate supply for maybe of water and food up to a week. So I thought that was good. As you know, we had that grand jury, and the grand jury said that we did not have enough adequate water for more than 3 days. So now I was very impressed with putting a little bit on the residents to make sure that they're doing that. And when we say the residents, we also mean the employees that may be at Gilead's or somewhere else. So.
Exactly, and then I absolutely agree with you, Council Member. I think, during the 8 to 5 day, our Foster City's population increases because of all the tech companies that we have working here. But they always say people at the local level, the individual is empowered to take steps to empower themselves to be more resilient, because if there is a major emergency, if there's a major earthquake, there's a major fire, police and fire assets are going to be inundated, right? And so it starts with, neighbors helping neighbors. That's why we administrate the CERT program. That's why we do public education. Obviously, we need to enhance that and get the word out and, give people guidance on what to do and how to prepare for, the next 72 hours at least, because they might not have communications or any of that kind of support element. So it's really the neighbor to your left and your right.
And are all our backup generators, are they electric or are they diesel? Or what are our backup generators?
There's, the backup generators are gas powered.
Gas powered.
If they were electric,
Okay.
we don't need them.
Thank you very much for answering the questions. I appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Anyone else with the questions? Okay, I'm looking for a motion. Patrick, you
Yeah.
pulled it?
Public
Yeah,
comment?
Public comment?
public comment.
We do not have any public comment.
Okay.
So move that we accept 5.2 of the consent calendar.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. 5.3, maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. I'm just following up on a question I had asked staff around 5.3. I wanted to see different impact measures. I appreciate the content that was provided by the consultant, our lobbyist, but I also wanted to get some more granular information. So staff had suggested if we could have, if the council was interested to have an annual end-of-year report moving forward. I think that would be really helpful so we can kind of really dig in and see the success of their impact. I don't know if that's something I would raise to get support now, or
Thank you, council member. So certainly the council could give direction to staff with the motion to bring back an annual report along the lines that you described.
okay,
And if there's a majority of support, that direction would carry to staff.
okay, and I can do that now.
I would actually maybe, would you consider maybe something, this might be more appropriate for our annual retreat?
Okay,
As we look at maybe goals, or, maybe just taking a look at what we have the lobbyist, advocating for,
Yeah.
what our positions are, and then we could tweak that at the retreat.
yeah, I'm happy to discuss it at the retreat. I just want to make sure that if this is a requirement we're interested in, it gets into the re-up of the contract value.
Also, just as a point of order, they do come in annually and give a report on what's going on in the legislature. So the lobbyist is there, and lots of questions can be asked there. If you want to prepare some questions or specific things that you're looking for to get reported on, they can do that as well when they come in and visit with us. They do come before this council.
Yeah, and I think that's great that we have the opportunity. I would like to, as someone who wants to share what's going on with the community, be able to have something that I can refer to and call out certain items. I think doing something like an annual report or whatever cadence we get on should be pretty commonplace, given that for them it isn't too much additional work if they're already putting together. I just wanted to more of a focus on Foster City wins and diving into why are they wins, and where were there areas where we didn't have wins or the turnouts that we wanted, and what were the impact of those.
That'd be
Yeah,
maybe
those
more.
are generally provided during that. They'll talk about the past legislative year, things that happened, what measures moved forward, what didn't, where they had success.
So that's verbally,
What's
right,
coming
to
up.
us?
Yeah, it's a report that they present to this group.
Okay, and then there's a leave behind where that's something we can share and be able to review? That's what I'm looking for, is an artifact
You
that.
want a written report?
Yes, I do, yeah.
We could probably see if we could add that into a contract at some point.
Yeah, that's what maybe I'm just not making it clear. That's what I would like added, if that's possible.
Not in this contract, not right now.
Not in this contract.
Not with what we're doing here, but we could certainly talk with them about
Okay.
it.
Well,
Okay.
just to be,
Let's, Marlene, say some things here.
So just to clarify, CPPG does provide each year with the end-of-year written report that is shared with council via email. I think what Councilmember Phoebe is requesting is, as part of that report, to include actions where we have taken positions on bills, the success of the bills that we took a position on, and the ones that did not necessarily, were not necessarily amended or moved as is. So what I suggested to Councilmember Venkat is, as part of that end-of-year report, consultant could definitely add that information, because right now that information is in the individual position letters that council signs.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, Patrick, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to make, I appreciate Councilman Venkat bringing this up. We brought this issue up, and I don't think it's something necessary. Maybe we should talk about it at the retreat. But when you take a look at their report, it's pretty much comprehensive of what the League of Cities that we already belong to. So I think what we're asking for, and it's not I would disagree with the city manager, it's not we're asking for them to do extra work. We're asking them to be specific of what they have actually done, because if I review most of that stuff, documentation, it's the same thing as the League of Cities has been doing. We're paying for the League of Cities. We're paying for these people. I want it to be a little bit more specific. I don't think it's asking
Yeah,
too
I
much.
guess the problem that I'm having here, I'm not really having a problem, but what I'm failing to understand is the stuff that goes on at the legislature right now that they lobby for, by and large, is the same thing that other cities are lobbying for and dealing with as well. I don't know of any legislative issues that are going on in Sacramento that are specific only to Foster City. And so, when they make a report, yes, they're lobbying for lots of other folks as well. And you may look at it as a mass-produced thing that's being given to everyone. No, what we get from them is, yes, this is what's going on, this is what's impacting cities. The difference between what we get through them and versus what we would get through the League of Cities is they are specifically working for us. They'll come back to us, they'll report on these things. We meet with them on a regular basis. Marlene and I are having meetings with them every other week and sometimes more often to get feedback and to see where we're at and see if there are specific things that our council can do in supporting, writing letters, those types of things. We don't get that kind of focus from the League. The League represents the things that's important to the League as a whole. And if it's an area that Foster City is a little bit different on, or a collection of cities are a little bit different on, they don't generally focus on that.
Well, I
And
appreciate that,
So what
but-
they're doing is when they focus on Foster City, the things that they're focused in on are things that impact a lot of cities, not just Foster City. For example, VLF is a big one that they're focused in on. VLF is something that really only impacts a handful of cities right now. And they've been very engaged in that. But it's not just for Foster City, it's for a handful of other cities and cities that are within this county. And so they are making that
Well,
focus.
instead of talking in circles, I appreciate that, I understand that. What I'm really asking, and you're having that dialogue already, when you have that dialogue, let us know, because we don't know until the end of the report. So I appreciate what you're saying, that you're having that dialogue.
I'm going to differ again with what you're saying. We present a report to this council on a regular basis on the meetings that we're having. You get that
Right.
regularly. You get those reports. So you're
Okay.
getting that.
Well, I'll just be a little more informative and ask the questions directly. And if I can't get them directly, I'll just ask them publicly. Thank you.
I'd like to clarify a little something that you were talking about, and that I think the lobbyists are, as Stefan pointed out, are interested in what Foster City and how it impacts, how legislation impacts it. What the League does, what they look at is what comes from the board and plus what comes from the 8 policy committees.
Right.
I've chaired one of the policy committees, so I know it was Housing, Community, and Economic Development, and there were 70 members, okay? And not all the cities agreed, because each city had their own specific issue that was affecting them. So what we're getting from this lobbyist and what we're getting from the League comes from a different focus.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, and I'm just embellishing what Stefan's saying.
That's correct.
So, okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, from what I understand, the annual report requirements are already included in the services that are subject to this agreement. So really, the direction if council is inclined to give direction to staff can go back to the consultant and ask them to clarify the report to address the issues that Councilmember Venkett raised, so that the report includes those issues that she would like addressed in the written report.
Can we do that? Would that be appropriate in the retreat?
We can
discuss that?
specify some of those things in the retreat, or we can just kind of get that information that you're looking for. A lot of that can just be added into what's already written. The written reports that you're getting, it talks about what's going on in the legislature, it talks about the wins, it talks about where we're at. If there's some additional information that we can plug in there, we're happy to do that. But if we're talking about a completely different format, if we're getting into something that is dealing with other issues that go beyond what's in their contract, then we're looking at a different contract. But it doesn't sound like that's the case here. So
Yeah, I think
we're
you
fine.
got that spot on. We just want to modify what we currently get, just to hone in a little bit more on like the wins and, I hesitate to say losses, but where we didn't prevail, right? A little bit more around like fiscal and process impact for each of those areas would be really helpful.
Okay. Anybody else comment?
I'll move, we gotta do public comment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Public comment.
We do not have any.
Okay. I'm looking to Phoebe make a motion.
Motion to adopt, should I read this whole? Okay. Okay, motion to adopt item 5.3 on the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes. Next item.
Item 6, new business. 6.1, implementation of housing element program, supportive housing in the city's existing unit purchase program. Units, anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Nori Java, Housing and Sustainability Manager, and I'm here to speak to you tonight about supportive housing. So the adopted housing element for planning period 2023-31 contains two programs specific to supportive housing. The first one is called HE1A, and that is about supportive housing with the existing unit purchase homes, program homes. There are 6 of those. So that when those become vacant, preferences for those city-owned units will have an opportunity, we will have an opportunity to propose renting the unit to provide supportive housing. The second program is for special needs, and because the programs overlap a bit, we are including them both in this program proposal. And the reason we're here tonight is one of our existing unit purchase homes is vacant recently. And we've owned these for a long time, but this vacancy came up recently. So it is time to transition to supportive housing to meet our housing element goals. So what is supportive housing? It is housing with no limit on length of stay, which means a 12-month lease or more, like other housing that's offered in the rental community. Off or on-site services must be provided in supportive housing, and it's for persons with one or more disabilities. And if you look at the definition on the right, it talks about a population, a target population. And there's a specific definition, but it is essentially people with disabilities, and it gives a list of several different types of disabilities. And target populations can include, among others, adults, emancipated minors, families with children, elderly persons, young adults aging out of the foster care system, individuals exiting from institutional settings, veterans, and homeless people. So it's a very broad definition. Similar to supportive housing, special needs housing includes housing for lower income seniors, veterans, families with children, single parents, young families, victims of domestic violence, farm workers, and the disabled. And it incorporates facilities and services to meet healthcare, transit, or social service needs. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between supportive and special needs. And special needs was included in our housing element based on a housing needs assessment that was completed as part of the process. And I'm just going back. The picture is an example of senior housing in Foster City, which counts as special needs housing. So that's Alma Point. The picture on the prior screen is an example in San Mateo County. It's Colma Veterans Housing in Colma, so that's for disabled veterans. So just to give you an idea. So here in Foster City, we have 6 existing unit purchase program units, and those consist of 2 single-family homes, one of which is 5 bedrooms, the other one is 3 bedrooms. They were purchased a long time ago, 1997 and 2009. And then there are 4 duplex units, a 2 and a 3 bedroom unit purchased in 1997, and a 2 and a 3 bedroom unit purchased in 2008. So the process for transitioning to supportive and special needs housing is really 4 steps, but there is a lot of overlap between steps 1, 2, and 3. So when a unit is vacant, because we've owned them for a long time, they're going to need some updating and rehab. So preparing a preliminary rehabilitation plan and doing inspections, identifying a supportive housing service provider through offering an RFP to agencies that provide these services and/or housing, rehabilitating that unit, and then filling the unit. But as I mentioned, 1, 2, and 3 happen in parallel. We have done inspections on the unit that is vacant, and we are starting with that rehab plan, just putting together what we think is needed, such as a new roof, interior, exterior painting, that kind of thing. So the types of supportive and special needs housing for the EUPP units is a little different than traditional supportive housing. So most traditional supportive housing is in larger apartment complexes where you have space for on-site services. So supportive housing for individuals needing extensive on-site services is really not feasible at these units because they are single-family homes and small duplexes and dispersed, not necessarily near services. So the city will need to enter into an agreement with an off-site service provider or a service provider that can coordinate in-home services, or a service provider that can provide on-site services with the addition of an ADU if we wanted to look into building an ADU on the site to provide that extra space for services. So there is some flexibility, but the concept of the traditional supportive services is not really going to work for the EUPP units because of their nature of single-family homes and 2 and 3, and we do have 1 5-bedroom unit. So considerations are first to provide housing and support services together through an agency that provides both housing and supportive services. So the types of services might be case management, counseling, coordination of care, training, all in a dispersed off-site environment. Examples include CORA, which is the Community Overcoming Relationship Abuse organization. Housing Choices, they provide housing and choices for people with developmental disabilities. San Mateo County Housing Authority, they handle the Section 8 program as well as many others. HIP Housing, HIP provides a self-sufficiency program and a housing readiness program. Another option is a group home, and this would be contracting with an agency that provides services for those with developmental disabilities in a group home setting. And those services are provided both on and off-site with a caregiver living in the home. This is one that might involve an ADU being built on the property, but they can also provide these services off-site, and in some cases they provide services for families living in their own homes with a household member that has a developmental disability. So examples of agencies include Kainos Home and Training Center in Redwood City, PARCA, and FAR. A third option is to provide just the supportive services and refer eligible households for housing. So we have our property, we have a contracted property management company that provides this for us now, HIP Housing, and they could continue, or whoever is contracted with us could continue to fill the units, and then the contract would be with the agency for referrals. So services, again, would be provided in an off-site location or coordinated for in-home care services. And an example of that would be IHSS workers that take care, like a family that has a disabled household member, and one of the household members provides that care, or they get off-site, an agency provides a caregiver that comes to your home. So examples of those agencies are San Mateo County Health Association, CASA of San Mateo County, San Mateo County Human Services Agency, the Health Department in-home supportive services that I mentioned earlier, and HIP Housing for their self-sufficiency or their readiness program. So it should be pointed out that agreements would need to include that the housing is for those with disabilities that meet the definitions of supportive housing. And the reason for that is that is what we use as the definition in our housing element. So eligibility criteria. What we're going to do is issue a request for proposals, and the respondents will be limited to agencies that can provide supportive housing or services and for households that meet the following criteria. So household size, because our units are smaller, we have 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, and a 5-bedroom unit. And the city does have occupancy minimums and maximums for those units. So for the unit that's vacant now, it's a 3-bedroom unit. So it would be for 4 to 7 people. Income would be restricted for households that are extremely low or very low. And that's 30% of area median income and 50% of area median income respectively. And then a household that has a member with a disability. So I want to just point out that we are talking about off-site services, but again, there are some limited examples that they could be on-site as well. And then target population groups: veterans, seniors, families with children, single parents, young families, victims of domestic violence, and persons with disabilities. And again, limited on-site services could work in some cases. So evaluation criteria with this RFP, we would issue the RFP for a wide variety of agencies. It would be on our website, and we would evaluate the proposals that come in on primarily these 3 items: the range of supportive services that they provide, household readiness. Do they have a wait list of households that would be eligible to live in this 3-bedroom unit? Or do they have, it doesn't necessarily need to be a wait list, do they have a family that would be eligible? And then the cost to the city to administer the program and any specifically requested tenant improvements. And this excludes requests for accommodations for those with disabilities. That would be handled on a case-by-case basis. So our time frame and next steps. HIP Housing and the city have completed the inspection of the unit, as I said, and we're working on a rehabilitation plan. The rehabilitation work will take about 3 to 4 months and will work in parallel, will occur in parallel with the RFP for the supportive housing services provider. Staff will request, as part of this process, for the respondents to include any known requests for reasonable accommodation so that we can budget for those in advance. Of course, reasonable accommodations can be requested at any time. And then staff will return to City Council for supplemental appropriation for rehabilitation costs and the costs of providing the supportive services. So the action after your questions would be to, by minute order, confirm our approach regarding supportive housing of the city existing unit purchase program units as part of implementation of housing element programs HE1 and HF1. And that is the end of my report, and I will open it up to questions.
Okay, questions? No? So,
Questions? Thank you very much for that presentation. It was very informative, and thank you for answering my questions. Still trying to wrap my head around the response and making sure, because to me it sounds like it's a house, it's going to more accommodate a family, but I wanted to make sure that if there's some kind of group or grouping of people that's not necessarily a family, that they could be supported as well if that fits into that, and it seemed like the answer was yes. Some questions that I forgot to ask, I'm sorry. The housing units that the city bought, those all came from the housing fund, not the general fund, is that correct? The purchase of those houses?
So they were all purchased through the successor agency through redevelopment. So they're managed out of Fund 122.
Great. So then I guess my next question is, when we go to rehabilitate these homes to make them, bring them up to code or make them presentable or suitable, where does that funding come from?
So we would also use that same fund, and I'm going to just, yes, confirmed by city attorney, yes.
And ongoing funding as well, like costs?
Correct. So management of these homes come out of that fund as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, questions?
Yeah, just a couple questions. Thanks for a comprehensive report. My concern is making sure we're not over doubling what other agencies may already provide. Obviously, Cora provides other things in the county, and so does Section 8. I'm more concerned about our city, our time, and accommodations. I think you were clear. Your presentation was really presenting what has changed in the rules since we have rented the units before, especially for classifications of certain type of people that would be now considered maybe under those provisions, senior citizen stuff. So my concern is that how much is time and cost is this report going to cost the city? Because from what you're describing, that's a pretty comprehensive report that you're going to have to put together.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that question. So I think this is a very new subject for the city. So as we will issue the RFP, any cost related to providing supportive housing, I think we will be more clear once we have those proposals. And once we have a cost estimate, we will come back to the City Council for any supplemental appropriation and cost associated with providing these services. We don't have
Okay.
that answer yet.
Okay. And then in your comment about the duplexes and the single families the expectancy is actually well overdue for remodeling. And obviously, within the last 10 or 15 years now, we have the idea that they can build accessory dwelling units. So if we're going to continue to use that and improve, it would be an ample time to make more units that would be able to fit into our housing element too. So I don't want that to be overlooked too.
Yeah, and that is why we included that option, for sure, because ADUs can be built on these properties, and, the yards are somewhat small, but they also, each property has a two-car garage, even for a two-bedroom unit. So
Right.
there's some opportunity there as well.
And then later on, I would like to look at not tonight's presentation, is the 22 units that the city owns, which were actually given by the developer, to see if it makes more cost-effective in a profit and loss statement to turn them into affordable units and sell them where we're unable to get property tax to begin with. In reality, we don't get property tax with them because the city owns them. So, and we're trying to encourage people to stay in the city. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kiesel. And thanks for the report and also addressing some of my questions before. As you were talking, a couple of things came up for me. One is around the target population. It's great that we're focused on that because it's the right thing to do and also meets the housing element, quantified objectives. I wonder if you mentioned that domestic violence survivors and victims are included. Are also the survivors of human trafficking, sexual abuse, or assault also included, and maybe just not mentioned in the report?
So the groups specifically are not mentioned, but there is some flexibility with the target populations.
Okay, thank you. And my next and last question is around, I think most of us are aware that the county is working on a family justice center very near to Foster City. So I'm just throwing this out there. You may already have thought of this, but are there any kind of, integrations that we could have working on this project that could support what's going on at that new justice center that's going to come online? So just putting that seed there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one. You were talking about coming back with what it's going to cost. What kind of time frame are we looking at? 2 months, 8 months, what?
So
I'm not trying to pick.
we're going to
make you
issue
fall
the
in
RFP.
one of those.
We'll issue the RFP as soon as we can. I'm going to start working on it tomorrow. And we will usually give about 30 days for a response and then 30 days for an evaluation. So it'll be within the next 2 months.
Okay, good enough, thank you. Okay, any more questions? None? Okay, public comment?
We do not have any.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion or for direction, I guess.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to proceed.
Another,
I'm gonna-
yeah, we're.
I'm going to pull
we're
it up
going
on the
along with
screen.
what they've presented to us. You're saying, let's go along with what they presented. Okay. Got a motion for.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 6.2, consideration of an agreement with Cosmont Companies to conduct a real estate economic market analysis. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom.
Okay. Next item.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesel, Vice Mayor Niederhofer, City Council, and members of the public. Sophia Manglam, Community Development Director. Thank you for the opportunity to present this item. This item recommends authorization to the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cosmont Companies to undertake the real estate economic analysis for City of Foster City, which is identified as a high priority for City Council. I will briefly cover the scope of this study, the procurement process undertaken, and briefly about the consultant. Last year in September, staff issued an RFP requesting proposals from qualified consultants with a due date of October 20th, 2025. The RFP was published on our city's website and also emailed to approximately 14 consultants. Staff received 8 proposals, out of which 5 were called for an interview. The interview panel consisted of myself, City Manager Chatwin, and Assistant City Manager Subhashini. Out of all these 5 consultants that we interviewed, Cosmont demonstrated a strong technical expertise, a clear and practical project approach, and experience with similar projects for various public agencies within California. They recently worked with or are actively engaged with various municipal clients, including Capitola, Daly City, Pacifica, Redondo Beach, San Rafael, Santa Barbara, just to name a few. Upon finalizing, the consultant staff had a follow-up discussion with the consultant and requested that the consultant provide an updated proposal. We definitely wanted to include a lot more in-person presentations, interaction with City Council, and also a final report identifying the action plan and next steps upon the analysis of the study. The finalized scope that has been included in the staff report includes conducting a citywide real estate economic market assessment, demographic and psychographic analysis, stakeholder and community engagement, which includes in-person meeting, virtual and in-person focus groups. The other task includes identifying future economic needs of the city, assess various opportunity sites, mostly the sites which are underutilized, provide few updates to City Council, with our first update or a kickoff meeting on February 10th. Cosmont estimates that the study could be completed in approximately 8 months, and the revised proposal is at $125,000. Staff has also included a contingency amount of $15,000 to pay for additional services to mitigate any unforeseen tasks and or additional services that may come up during this study. We do have Ken Hira from Cosmont Companies, and he's attending via Zoom and is available to respond to any questions that you may have regarding their experience or their proposal. That concludes my staff report, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Question, Petra?
I don't have any questions of the staff.
Okay. Phoebe?
Thank you for the report and for addressing some of my questions beforehand. One thing that I wanted to ask about is tourism and marketing, the branding of Foster City. I know that you had responded to this when I brought it up, and that thank you for saying that you're going to note this. I really want to make sure that these elements are included in terms of like high-level recommendations. Obviously, it's on us to execute, but we want to make sure that we get the word out, right? And so what do we need to do better around positioning Foster City as a destination that people want to get to, and not like the city near the airport or city near another city. And I think that's really important. I also want to understand like the experience that Ken and your team have around change management and advice around that, or guidance that you have, just because it's great to be able to get like the quantitative data. That's really important because I think we can all use it, but I think it's also what the mindset shift, because there's people in our community and people even on past dioceses who have said, well, we're built out, we are a bedroom community, none of this will work. So I want to make sure that we have the qualitative and quantitative data, but also an approach when we do get that kind of concern, because those concerns are valid, and I want to make sure those are addressed.
Is there a question there, though?
How do you plan to address those concerns around change management?
Okay,
Thank you.
You can answer.
Ken, did you get that question?
I did, thank you, Mayor and members of the council, and Councilwoman Venkat, thank you for your question. It's not an easy, we have no silver bullets in our approach because economic development and real estate is, somewhat complicated. A mature community like yours, it is sort of hard to move that needle, but I think the data can help inform some of the strategies. If we don't have good information about where people are coming from, where they're going, what their preferences are, and what are today's trends. We're doing a lot of shopping online. We're still looking for experience. We still want a place. We still want a third place, if you will. And what's interesting is I just look at your Costco in general, and, cities would do anything, if you will, to get that kind of a draw or an anchor. And it's my understanding, because I've got experience in some of these retailers, that Costco likes to see about 200,000 people in their trade area. And I was just and I'm going to get to a point here, but 200,000 people in the trade area, I was kind of just looking at San Mateo County. I think there's 3 Costcos, and there's 700,000 people. And I thought, okay, this at the simplest level and the simplest of math, that the 3 Costcos are catering to, say, just San Mateo. It doesn't work exactly like that, because county lines and city lines, they can be traversed. But my point is a couple 100,000 people in theory are coming into your town, and to do that shopping, have that shopping experience. And in one sense, can we do anything to capture those folks? Can we do anything to help them have something other than a Costco shopping experience? And I think part of the data will tell us where they're coming from. If you don't already know, I think we can use some of the data, like Placer AI is one of the resources, technology resources, that I think is very powerful, insightful. It can identify demographics, shopping patterns, if you will, where people are coming from, where they're going, even where they like to go after or before their shopping experience. Well, I think that can help us, once we get informed, give you all some metrics as well as some strategies to maybe figure out how do we capture some of those folks, how do we have them stick around. They're beyond just your residents, right? So it's not just, okay, if there's a couple 100,000 people, we have to make sure that your community who are leaving to do other things also have reasons to stay. So I'm not sure if I'm not sure if there's a really clear answer to your question about being a change agent, if you will, but we are in these analyses, and we're doing economic development advisory work for lots and lots of cities, and they all have their own dynamic. And, are you going to get a Target because they're across the freeway? No, odds are, right? Do you have a Costco that cities would do anything to get? The revenue that comes from that Costco could be more than the shopping center across the 92, to your general fund. And again, if those folks are coming into town, can we help synergize or strategize in order to know that, hey, we're at Foster City. This is the Foster City Costco, right? Some folks don't even necessarily know or care what city they're going to. They just know they got to go to a Costco, go to a Target, go to a grocery store, go to a restaurant. So I think there's some image, not so much branding, because we're not branding consultants, but I think there's some data and some imaging, and that can help inform us, inform you all of some strategies to try to make a difference.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you, Ken.
I have comments, not questions. I don't know if now's the time.
Thank you, and I appreciate your extensive background and the information, the data you're acquiring. Foster City is probably unique, but not more unique than surrounding cities. How are you going to approach getting the data? First of all, I'm going to disclaim or claim I'm a commercial broker and been in the real estate business for over 40 years. So my main thing and observation in Foster City is like a lot of cities, we have a lot of vacancy in commercial buildings. How would you address that, and how would you address that with a consideration of mixed-use situation? Or how would you acquire that information?
Sure.
And I'm more than willing to share my knowledge of this information with you, too.
I was actually going to go there, Councilman, because one thing I was going to say is our stakeholder outreach and stakeholder input, which is you all and others within the community, is very important to us. So we have to interview you all to gain your knowledge of the marketplace. So that's somewhat anecdotal. It could be quantifiable. We can talk a little bit about the history of vacancy, occupancy, etc. Number one. Number two, the data resources that we're going to use to get that information is probably as deep and wide as any source of information is. CoStar, we'll use Esri for demographics, we'll use CoStar for most and all of that market data. If we had to take a look at any hotel analyses, by the way, we would use Smith Travel Research STR, which is now part of CoStar. And then, as I mentioned earlier, another powerful data source is going to be Placer AI. And that's going to help us understand where folks are coming and going. Further, your vacancies are going to be specific, right? If you have a vacant OSH, which you do, an Orchard Supply, and it's 15,000 square feet, then we have to make an assessment to say 30,000 square feet. Is that a good opportunity for us to be able to attract a business? And there's a lot that goes into that question. I can answer, are there 30,000 square foot tenants looking for locations, retail locations in this trade area, in this market? Short answer is yes. Question then is, we don't own the real estate. We don't control it. And I'm sure you're very, very familiar with that. So how do you get cooperation? How do you work with property owners? How do you help your marketing efforts as a city, if you will, end up resulting in really, serving the community by filling a missing niche, let's say? So I use the term a lot. There's art and there's science, and I've identified both. We'll use a lot of science based on our data. The art is, how are we going to get someone to take a look at that OSH space, and just using that as an example, and show up into 30,000 square feet. There's vacant OSHs all over the place, they're generally pretty well located. So is that a little bit of marketing? Is it collaborating with property owners? Is it understanding economics? Is it being able to do outreach to businesses and identify that opportunity for some of the potential businesses or retailers?
Okay, the tougher question, I appreciate those properties that you mentioned, they're obvious. The real initial question, which I said, is your office buildings that are predominantly, some of them are 50% vacant, and some are currently on the market too. And sometimes, as you well know, there's no motivation for the investors to do anything, they're just going to wait it out. How do you approach somebody like that to do something? Because that is economic development if we can make some more progress with either a mixed-use situation or making the rents lower so people will rent spaces.
Well, and I know you did ask about mixed use, so let me address that as well. If we look at highest and best use of real estate, it's really there's 5 asset classes, right? There's hospitality, there's retail, there's residential, there's industrial, and there's office. It's not that complicated to figure out which one of those work today in terms of feasibility, lack of supply, high demand. The office market is going through a major change. Now, you could have certain office, medical office, certain corporate users, certain tech users, and you do, that have massive job foundation, right? So they have a lot of jobs, and it's very important. So I think understanding that is important. But generally speaking, the office industry is facing some challenges, facing a lot of vacancy. And that distress, the potential distress there, can be an opportunity for a city to look at that and say, okay, how can I replace office with residential? Because that's the reality of what's going on across our state. Office is basically being replaced with residential. And quite frankly, some retail is being replaced with residential. We have too much retail in our country. We have too much retail in our state. You may not have enough retail in Foster City, but the trade area probably has plenty of retail. So we're looking at that to kind of right-size that asset class, the retail, and probably do a little right-sizing with the office. And I think because we also do a lot of financial analysis, understanding whether a residential project or a mixed-use or blended-use project can make some sense is something we do every day.
No, I appreciate that. As you well know, the unions are working in that direction on the training too, the mixed use with the commercial buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, I have just really, well, this is more from staff. In the staff report you talk about the report that was done in analysis that was done in 2013. Do you have access to the findings?
Yes, we do have the report.
Because I think that's going to be somewhat helpful, because that was a very distasteful result back then. So thank you. That's all my questions. Public comment.
We do not have any
actually have a
public comment.
if I can. Mayor,
Oh, now
I have a comment. Are we moving to comments, or are we doing public
yeah,
comment
no.
first?
Okay, now you make comments.
Okay, sorry.
Yes,
Just wanted to make sure we were moving.
I wasn't going to.
Sorry, the process, you're right. So I just wanted to say, I'm excited about this. I would like to see, and I don't know if that's already in the plans, but that we include the golf course in our site analysis as we look at all of the different sites. I don't know if that's something we're thinking about.
Yeah, we look at all of the sites. I want to be careful that looking at the sites doesn't mean we're planning on doing anything beyond that. This is an analysis, and we'll do that with all of those different areas. So we're not leaving anything out.
Great. And
But
then
again,
just,
the actual, okay, what do we do with that?
okay.
I don't want to give the impression that we're looking at getting rid of the golf course. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think anybody does.
No, but the report did mention looking at, at doing an analysis of available sites. And then I think next, on page 176, it talked about looking at the, 10 years of forecasts and trying to see kind of what the trends are going to be like over the next 10 years. My hope is that the end result of this will not just be something nice and shiny that's going to work for the next 5 years, right? But this is a comprehensive plan that will really help us, get through. I mean, we've done an amazing job over the last 50 years of building Foster City into what it is today. So my hope is that this, what we get out of this, the end product, will be something that will then kind of be able to transition us into the next 50 years and maybe even become kind of a cornerstone of something bigger, something bigger that we can do in Foster City. So thank you.
Comment?
Actually, can I back up to a question? Sorry.
Good.
This is for Ken. I hear of the buzzwords best and highest use, and I just want to make sure, is that synonymous with what will work best in Foster City? Because I don't want there to be a disparity between what's the best and highest use, but this works best in Foster City.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think we can take broad, generic trends. I gave you some just a second ago, about 5 asset classes for that matter, which sounded very simplistic. It's more complicated than that, of course. But what we have to do is, yes, what applies in Foster City? If we tell you guys to build a 12-story apartment building and it's going to block a bunch of views, it makes no sense if a 12-story apartment building works in another market, that doesn't mean it works in your market. So there'll be macro variables and variants that will drive some of what we come up with by way of recommendation. There has to be micro variables involved. There has to be your city, your opportunity sites. I mean, if there's a commentary about a golf course, that's a lot of land, right? I don't know who owns it. We'll figure that out. We'll talk about it. But that's a massive amount of land. You're a pretty confined city, right? So the question is, are we going horizontal or are we going vertical? And then there's a feasibility component to that, just to slightly overcomplicate, that we have to say today, building highly vertical projects doesn't really pencil. It'd be nice if we could meet some RENA requirements, get some housing, and create a density to do that, to accomplish that, assuming there's a market for it. But we also have to look in the short term at the financial feasibility of some of these projects. And there'll be short-term and long-term considerations for that type of thing.
Great, thank you.
For city.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this, so thank you very much.
Is it appropriate to ask for public comment again, since we get a little bit more clarification on the questions?
You've taken public comment. I mean, you can go questions and comments afterwards, but you've already taken public comment.
I said I can, is that what you're saying? No, I don't need to?
You don't need to.
Okay, all right, because we got more material. Okay, any other comments over here?
I have a last comment for now, and thank you, Ken, for addressing our questions on the fly. You mentioned in your RFP proposal the psychographic analysis, right? And that's very, very nuanced. There's all different segments you're looking at. I just really want to reiterate and stress that we don't only get the same. If people who have participated in the past are more than welcome, there's certain people, this is for any kind of survey that you put out or community engagement, you get same voices all the time, right? Because those are the people that want to speak up, and that's great. We welcome them again. We need to make sure that we're creative and nimble with getting the voices that maybe are not as heard. Maybe they're not at some of the larger events that you may be getting community engagement at, like concerts and things like that. Multi-generational households where not everyone speaks English as a native language, tenants, which are nearly 50% of our population. So I just want to make sure those voices are reflected just as well as those who are very used to contributing. Thank you.
And adding to Councilman Venkat, and that would also mean the people that work in the city of Foster City, because I think that's important. Our biggest person is what Gilead's and Visa. So if we can find something that's going to enhance our economic development where they spend more dollars in our city and not considering it, go home after, that would be great.
Okay, I don't have anything to add beyond that. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Cosmont Companies.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, can I clarify that the motion is to adopt the resolution that's before the council?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I need.
The second?
Second.
Yeah, but you still second it.
I agree. Second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item.
Item 6.3, consideration of submitting a letter of objection regarding a certification of final environmental impact report, FEIR, for SFO recommended airport development plan. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom.
Yes, and in lieu of a staff report, Vice Mayor Susie Niederhofer is going to make some comments.
So first, I want to thank the City Council for allowing this to come forward to you, approving it to come forward. And I also want to give a special thanks to staff for preparing the report, specifically Kevin Ortiz, who helped write this letter. So I just want to, I know that the letter is very detailed, very legal. So I just want to give a brief summary of what it says. So basically, the EIR does not address the additional noise and air pollution that would come from the recommended airport development plan. The argument that the county the City and County of San Francisco continually makes is that the plan does not change the capacity of the airport, either both passengers or flights. However, without the improvements in the plan, the ability to reach the capacity would be difficult. So the argument that we're trying to make is that the plan does facilitate growth and thus additional noise and air pollution, and it should be addressed in the EIR. That's just a quick summary.
Okay. Questions? Staff comment?
Yeah, the only comment.
No comment, questions.
Questions.
All right, public?
We do not have any public.
Okay, comment, Patrick.
My comment, I support your idea. I sit on the airport land, and if there's any violation of noise and traffic, that will come back because it would be in violation of the EIR report. But I am very concerned about what your comment is because the bottom line is the airport ignores us. So even though we've put stuff in place, we had fines of $10,000 every time we saw a plane that reached over a certain decibel, but nothing happened. Anyway, no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I got two comments. One, Susie made this comment, or let me just condensed it down, because she's a member of the Airport Roundtable, our representative, and that's one of the outside functions that we perform with the regional and area committees that we serve on. So the other one is, I agree with you, Patrick. The airport doesn't listen. But if this was going to Sacramento, I'm not sure it wouldn't make its way into the File 13 to start with. So I'm in support of this myself, but comments, all right, who wants to support it?
I'll make a motion.
Can I just add a comment? First, thank you, Vice Mayor Niederhofer, for raising this opportunity to communicate our needs. I also wanted to know if there's an opportunity, maybe it doesn't have to be with this letter's timing, because it sounds like we need to get this out the door, but if we can coordinate future communications or technical objections with other nearby communities so that we can increase like our voice and our collective like leverage. So that's just something, comment/question.
Let me just comment on that. Sometimes it's a little difficult just because when we find out about it from some other community, the timing to get the staff and then the timing to get to the next council meeting may not be very timely, is my point.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess recently there was a letter joint between San Mateo and Foster City Council to the school district, right? So
Right.
I understand it's a very different topic, very different audience, but just saying like going forward to keep that in
If we
mind.
can, yes, I agree with you.
If we can, and we can try.
Yeah, but, okay. We got a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this letter and send it to the City and County of San Francisco's Planning Commission meeting tomorrow.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I abstain.
It passes 4-1. 4-0-1, excuse me.
Do I have the right to ask, just out of curiosity for the record, why you chose to abstain, Councilmember Sullivan?
You know, I appreciate that, but that's between me and myself. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next item.
Item 7, reports. 7.1, Citizen Sustainability Advisory Committee, CSAC 2025 Year-End Report, Review of Mission Statement, and Goals for 2026. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom.
So who's doing?
Right over here.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. The Citizen Sustainability Advisory Committee, or CSAC, is here to present its 2025 annual report and proposed goals for 2026. Just as a note, no changes were made to the current mission statement. The committee had a busy and exciting 2025, carrying over many of its programs into 2026. Just a note of correction on the goals list, we are removing the goal draft a letter of recommendation from CSAC to the City Council in support of Assembly Bill 1243, as we learned that the bill is currently not moving forward, so it will be removed from the goals list. We'd like to thank our City Council liaison, Phoebe Venkat, and the members of the public who regularly attend committee meetings. I'd also like to recognize the CSAC members here tonight who support the committee. And now I'd like to introduce Committee Chair Shilpi Goel and Co-Chair Nisa Mitra, who will present CSAC's accomplishment and goals.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the member of City Councils. I'm Shilpi Goel, Chair of Foss City Citizen Sustainability Advisory Committee. Tonight, we are proudly share both what CSAC has accomplished in 2025 and where we are headed in 2026.
Good evening. My name is Nisa Mitra, and it's crazy to think that 2 years ago I was standing right here, hoping to be appointed to be in this committee. And it's going to be impossible to capture every discussion and idea that we have in our committee meetings, but we hope tonight gives us justice to what our team has done and the direction we're excited to move in next. So, over the course of this year, our work revolves around 2 core goals. One is in which to support the city staff in promoting and implementing Foster City's updated climate action plan. And second, to seek out and promote sustainability best practices in our residents and the community. And, those 2 goals really shaped what we did throughout the course of the year. So, in 2025, our main goal, wasn't just on policy adoption, particularly, but more so on behavior change, like how these sustainability best practices really ends up in residents' daily decisions and choices. So one major area of learning for our committee was community-based social marketing. So it's a really interesting concept, and it basically looks at the psychology, behind, why people choose to act sustainably or, why they hesitate, which I think is really important to learn, especially as a committee whose goal is to make sure that Foster City is as sustainable as possible. So a key accomplishment under this approach of learning this is we made or developed a pilot solar permit outreach campaign. And what that looked like is that we used targeted emails and specific posters and flyers. And this effort supported multiple of the Year 1 initiatives in the updated Climate Action Plan. And that includes appliance rebate programs through Peninsula Clean Energy and PG&E, and increased awareness of building this sort of electrification and voluntary adoption for using all-electric technologies, like an induction cooktop or a heat water pump. And, beyond this outreach, the members of our committee engaged directly with residents at various city events. And in doing so, at these events, with what we learned from the community-based social marketing, we wanted to really, meet people where they were. We wanted to learn, how to get through those barriers. We studied those throughout the course of the year, and we kind of, we tried to make a tangible impact. Shilpi, do you want to take that?
At the Earth Day, hosted by the Foss City Library, and few of you guys were there. If you guys remember, we had 14 different vendors and dozen of kids who participated in trash art contest, which was very popular, and some of them had judges in the past. At the 4th of July pancake breakfast, the CSAC worked with the event organization to reduce single-use and bulk item where possible. If you guys remember, if some of you guys have attended, that we had made completely composed, that it was a landfill, almost zero landfill event. And this year, like last year, I bought 30 red, blue, and white table covers, so which gonna get used again this year. So we took out the completely plastic from there. Summer days, if you guys remember, we did both days, 2 days booth campaign, connecting 100 of residents through the hand-on experience, trash sorting game, and eco-friendly prizes.
So our committee is divided into subcommittees. There's the Community Engagement Subcommittee, the Events Subcommittee, and the Business. And, this year we added 2 new resident members and 1 existing resident member. And, looking into 2026 for our goals, I think as a committee, we're really focused on deepening and expanding our work, particularly making a sort of impact regarding the Climate Action Plan, which was obviously our goal from the very beginning. We plan to continue hosting and participating in community events like Earth Day and Clean Air Day, and while also strengthening partnerships with local organizations like PG&E or Peninsula Clean Energy, and really making a difference with them, right? Businesses and city committees, specifically the Youth Advisory Committee, we really plan on working with them a lot because, the kids are really the future generation, right? And Parks and Recreation Committee. And we'll also focus on programs that support community energy projects, urban agriculture, that's one of the things we plan on investigating next year, and policies that encourage sustainable practices. And, overall, 2025 or 2026, our goal stays the same. We're just trying to help our community be as sustainable as possible and operate within planetary boundaries while prioritizing well-being and equity and participation. And, before we wrap up, I just want to really highlight our amazing team. I mean, none of this happens without them. I was impacted by every single one of these committee members. It's insane. I think, everything we've done and everything we've accomplished, it comes from the heart of this team. And I think what makes our committee so special is that we always wear our sustainability hats, even outside the city chambers room. And, from becoming a green business to giving a speech and installing solar panels and switching to EV, we walk the walk. And I think that's really important. And our job here, is nothing more than to encourage others to do what we do. Because we all know that at the end of the day, everything we've accomplished and everything we will accomplish, it's only possible because of this amazing team. And a huge thank you to Ms. Venkat for always supporting us, truly the backbone of our team and our city liaisons. We're really excited to what we'll see in 2026. And thank you so much for all your guys' support. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add one more thing. 2026, I talked this a long time back to, I definitely want to see no water bottle in this chamber, which I always do see. And this needs to change in 2026. Thank you.
We're open to any questions.
Questions?
Question.
Yes.
Patrick. Yeah, I really thank you, because your enthusiasm is always overwhelming, and I look at all your accomplishments and I wonder why. Did we do that much on the council? You guys sometimes surpass us. One of my passions I'd sure like to see is somehow that we can get solar lights on the levee. And I would think that would be a donation from, maybe Gilead's or Visa or something, but that would be a really good message for people. One of the things that we're seeing right now is with PG&E is not buying a lot of electricity back. So solar is somehow going awry a little bit. And people are buying backup battery generators, which is positive too. So.
Yeah, noted, absolutely. That's a great idea. We'll keep it on the plate. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Like I said, I look at every individual contribution. Thank you.
Phoebe, you have a question? Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple. I notice you've got a lot of individuals named here and what they accomplished. Was that done through the committee? Because you had some that are members of the committee and those that are no longer in the committee.
Yes.
Some are not longer in the committee.
So could you explain the process that you go through?
Yeah,
Why are you singling out one individual who did these things?
Yeah, for sure. Vanessa, our city liaison, could take that. She makes the plans for how the mission statement would look like.
So we tried to capture everyone who was actually on the committee last year, and we had a number of former members who actually are still involved in our committee on the sidelines, but we wanted to make sure that we captured all of those accomplishments as well, even if they're no longer with CSAC.
I can answer also, like as a person, I come from a business committee, small business committee, And I was the one who worked hard to get e-business program, and I'm the only one in the Foster City. So it was completely my achievement. As a Nilu and Nilufer Motiwala and the Mara, they are the one who completely planned the Earth Day and the Clean Air Day. So they were the backbone of doing that, even with the solar project. So there were so many things that individually has led the project, and we helped as a committee.
Okay, it just seems to me, like that individual is the only one that worked on that project. That's how I'm reading this. Is that the case?
So a few projects was completely led by the individuals.
Led?
Which project? Like for me, the completely being a green business was completely my project.
Yes.
It was completely by me. It all getting the information from everywhere from the county was completely by me. So it's by you can say as a community member, but led completely by me, and I'm the only one who is at this point presenting that.
Okay, when I think of committee, I think of the entire committee, not necessarily individuals.
Yeah,
It was led by them and held by everybody.
I think for the individual achievement section in the summary, I think the purpose of that was to, show that we still actively, even with word of mouth, even in individual things that we do, not necessarily as an action that, we did as a committee together, something we talked about together. It's something that we did in our own shoes, in our own time. Not something that's, incorporated with the CSAC, but something we did, with ourselves, being like a sustainability nerd.
So the projects that you're working, that one is working on, now that has been run through the committee?
Mayor
or
Kiesel?
not? Or is that an individual choice?
So every project, like what we do on Earth Day, the solar campaign, those are not individual things. Those are work done by a certain subcommittee and that we've actively talked about as an entire committee. I think the individual achievements don't include those committee-based projects or campaigns.
Mayor Kiesel, just as a point of clarification, I'll use Shilpi as an example. She sought on her own outside of the committee to become a green business through San Mateo County, but once she became a green business, she brought all of that information back to the committee. She gave a presentation. We actually heard from the gentleman who does the San Mateo County green businesses because it's something we'd like to bring to the rest of businesses in Foster City. So oftentimes what our members do is they do a lot of research, a lot of work on the outside, and then they bring it back to the committee to talk about it. But so much of it is self-generated.
Now, that's before it gets to the committee, they do the work, or?
Only on their own behalf, but then they come and give the results to the committee.
Mr. Mayor, if I could offer this, I think one of the things that we love about CSAC so much is the members of CSAC they walk the walk, and they are personally invested in these kinds of things, and you see it in the things that they do when they're not just on the committee doing those things. And I think that's what we have here is as individuals, each of them are prime examples of the principles and the values that they hold so dear that they bring to that committee. And you see a little bit of that in the write-ups. And I think that's part of the purpose here is to show the quality of each of those individuals, both current members and past members, that they really engage in this kind of stuff even outside of the committee.
Yeah, I'm just looking, I'm taking the term advisory committee, and that doesn't fit. My definitions. And okay, my second thing is because the advisory committee is at the pleasure of the council, there's a couple of things that I would like to see, okay? As we go into electric and getting rid of gas and fossil fuel, but electric cars, at some point when we're replacing water heaters, stoves, furnaces, we're going from gas to electric. At some point, we're going to reach a point where we're going to need to go from 100 amp service that feeds single families now to 200 amp. Okay, that's a very costly thing to do. What are there other cities doing anything to help lower that cost? Because yes, it's practical, I appreciate that, but the real concept here is we're going to electricity.
That's a really good question. I think that's one of the biggest challenges as a committee like this is really, the upfront cost of electrification or these things. It can be really scary sometimes, but I think as a CSAC, as an advisory committee, our job is to really research and work with these organizations like PG&E and Peninsula Clean Energy who have already established, and they're also working towards, creating those kind of solutions to, lower the upfront cost of that, have rebate. And I think we're still in the process of developing, like I said, meeting people where they are. And community-based social marketing also helps with that. So it's definitely still a process that we're doing. We know from other cities and other committees and, these other organizations. And it's definitely still a work in progress, but, we're still working towards that and trying to advise
It's just that
people.
I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to overcome in the short to near term.
Yes.
Mayor Kiesel, I wanted to add, Peninsula Clean Energy does provide incentives for panel upgrades. And so what we could add is trying to get the word out about more of those incentives.
Okay. So that, public comment?
We don't have any.
Okay, comments?
I just want to say thank you for the report. Amazing job. You are such an active committee, and I personally, I like actually seeing all of the individual contributions and all the things that you have done as individuals, because as things come up, if I'm talking to someone and say they had a question about a green business or becoming more green, I can go, oh, you know what? I can refer them to Hugh. So I actually did like that. And I am the liaison to Peninsula Clean Energy. They will be changing their name, by the way, so heads up. But I would love to see more collaboration and more there's so much symbiotic movement between the two of your groups. And I think that they offer so many important, things that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of.
They have given a presentation almost 2 years back, so it's time to bring them back.
They actually did give a presentation here a few weeks ago. It wasn't very well attended. I think we could have done a little bit more around that. But yeah, great work, so thank you.
Thank you.
And really quickly, can we get a bottle filler in here, water bottle filler station in here?
Thank you.
And switch maybe
we're
out our
gonna
water
look at that, and I've committed myself to bring my own water bottle from now on. So.
I forgot mine tonight, so I am grateful for the water bottles that are provided when I forget one, but I will do better, I promise.
Thank you.
So I'm always very impressed with all the work that the CSAC does, both as individual members and collectively as members. So I'm very grateful to you, to all of your membership, that you support our community so well.
Thank you.
Your introduction told everything to begin with, and you really, when you said it to begin with, lead by example. And what your whole emphasis to begin with was that's how we were going to make a change, by other people putting their solar on or doing something. And Art, to answer one of your questions, you had a real good question, and Councilman Stacy was trying to mention it. The Clean Energy has proposals to help you with your water heaters, with your heaters. Now, I would beg to differ that I don't think electric is going to be the whole thing. PG&E is backing off a little bit and is actually putting in gas lines. So I would be surprised that it will be a combination. I don't think everything will totally go electric, but that's just my opinion.
That's an opinion.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Phoebe?
I'm really proud, and I'm a little biased, obviously, because I'm your liaison, but I think something that comes to mind, a phrase, is like hustle and flow, right? This committee, each of you, like you said, walk the walk and talk the talk, but you also leave a lot of room for discussion, debate. I think sometimes conflict is almost viewed negatively, but in your committee, I noticed that people are welcome to disagree, to have a different opinion, and instead of shutting people down, you lift people up and you make sure that they're heard. I've observed that time and time again. You operate like you're in startup mode, but also you're looking towards the future. So I appreciate that you're thinking about scaling, success metrics, these are, building out community ambassadors. So I really do appreciate the format of the report highlighting committee impact as well as individual impact, because then more of our community can see and relate to different members. Maybe there's something you're doing that someone can relate to, or what John's in the audience, right? To relate to. So kudos, thank you.
Thank you.
And my comment is that, because you have so many, well, first off, I appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Look at the smile. It's okay. No, that's good that you got the passion. Maybe we need to think in terms of, because they have former members participating in this committee deliverables, if you will, maybe we need to perhaps expand it since the enthusiasm is there.
I just want a point of clarification. So the former members that are participating are doing so as members of the public. So they will attend on Zoom as a member of the public, or come in person and provide public
Are
comment.
they not members because they termed out, or because of what?
Because we shrink the size, that's why, and few left.
Yeah,
That's why
one
my
termed
suggestion
out
is
or
maybe
moved
we
out
should
of the
take a
city.
look at the size of the
Please
committee.
do,
Maybe
that will be awesome.
Please. More the merrier.
Just a
Yes.
thought.
The more the merrier.
I'm just opening it up as a thought, okay?
Thank you.
So I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to adopt the CSAC 2025 year-end report. Mission, we didn't cover mission statement today. That didn't change, and goals for 2026. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Next item.
Item 8, Communications. 8.1, City District warrants of demands were processed and issued on January 5th, 2026, January 15th, 2026, and ACH were processed on January 5th, 2026. Anyone who wants to provide public comment, please provide a speaker slip or raise your hand on Zoom. This is an information item only, no action required. Item 9, City District Manager reports, Council Board statements and requests, and Council Liaison reports.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, the only item that I have to bring up is a reminder of our city council retreat that will take place a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, February 10th. Will begin at 9 a.m. The retreat will take place here in council chambers. That's a little different than we've done it before. One of the reasons that we've moved it here to council chambers is new legislation now requires that those meetings be broadcast, I believe, as well as recorded. That has not been the case in the past. And so we do believe that we'll be able to do those in the EOC and provide the recording and the broadcasting there, but until we're sure of that and we've got everything in place, and I think we did last minute, we're going to try it here this time and see how things go. But again, 9 a.m., look forward to seeing you in a week from tomorrow.
Okay. Stacy?
Not too many meetings, but over the weekend I was a panelist at a forum hosted by Diane Pappin on surrounding e-bikes, and this followed a presentation that Josh Becker did the Wednesday before this, also on e-bikes. So it's good to see that our upper electeds are finally kind of getting on board with this issue, and both sessions were very informative. I was honored to be a panelist at Assemblymember Pappin's event, but towards that end, I would like us to write a letter in support of a bill that she is sponsoring this year. It's AB 1557. That doesn't go as far as I would like it to, but I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of closing some of the loopholes with e-bike legislation and just kind of starting the process of making this whole genre of transportation, as you will, safer. So hopefully I can get some support for that.
I support that.
Okay.
Okay.
is that all you need? I support it too.
Yeah, I just need, so if we can direct staff to work on maybe a letter, or our lobbyists, I don't know what the appropriate would be, but.
Okay.
Okay, great. And then, just finally, I wanted to acknowledge my last closing comment that we're entering February, and it is Black History Month, and this month is actually the 100th anniversary of celebrating Black History Month. And so I just wanted to give space to that. And while we have made so much progress over the last 100 years, I feel like we have so much more work to do. So I'll just end my comments with a quote by Dr. King. He said in 1963, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." And I feel like we are in a time of challenge and controversy, so I would just encourage all of us to really look at what matters to us and not be afraid to make our voices heard. So thank you.
Okay. Susie? Or you want to go, Lana?
It's okay. I'm good. Thank you. So the only meeting I had this past 2 weeks was the Emergency Service Council meeting. There was a lot of discussion of the regional coordination of Super Bowl coming up. I just wanted to let everybody know there's going to be a lot of police presence on Caltrain and also on BART, but mostly on Caltrain. And a lot of traffic going down 101, the 101 corridor. So I want everybody to be aware that there will be heavy traffic. And it'll be over a few days, not just on Super Bowl day. So, and then we have FIFA coming up. I believe it's in May, and it's a much longer period of time, not just a weekend, but I think they talked about it being over a 2-week period in which there'll be, again, police presence and coordination, highway patrol, cities, and multi-jurisdictional. So FIFA's in May, and it's going to be, I think, more crowded. So be aware of that there is coordination. So, thank you.
Okay. Patrick?
Thanks very much. I attended the bicycle pedestrian, which this is my 6th year on it. It was very evident that we're putting out for proposals for money for your bicycle pass, so I'm encouraging Foster City to put their bid in. I know we did get a grant of $88,000. A couple things that came up, the county, the city, and the state, they're all doing their own trails. It'd be nice if somehow we could connect the bicycle trails together. So that's one of the goals. There was also a comment, Samtrams in the city of Redwood City are trying to get some approval to have some more curbs that would encourage bicycle riders to be able to either ride the bus, put their bikes on the buses too. Also, I attended with the rest of the council, the anti-Semitic seminar put on by Warnick. It was well received. There was the 8th graders, the teachers, very welcoming and very encouraging, and I congratulate the Warnick School for putting that on. I also attended the traffic review, and it's funny because the traffic review dovetailed into the bicycle pedestrian because the head of that brought the presentation of what we're trying to do with the cities for that. Let's take a look here. Also attended with most of the council is the Council of Cities, which was the cooperative one in Mountain View. I think the leading buzzword, and of course I'm hearing the economic development, and I really encourage you to hear that. But when you were talking to the local politicians, whether they had the senator there from Fremont, and they also had Papin, the only words that came out of their mouths for economic development seemed to be sales tax and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping we can turn around the politicians to think of how can we develop more revenue in cities without taxing people. I attended, and I want to congratulate Stacy Jimenez for the e-bike situation. And, you know, we should be real proud in Foster City. We have a levee, and we do have a speed limit on the levee, 15 miles an hour, and then it's 5 miles and another right around the curve going underneath the bridge because you don't want to crash into somebody. So I appreciate it, and the gist of the whole thing is there's no silver bullet. It's not citing kids. We're all in it together. We're going to somehow get to the pedestrians, somehow get to the people taking their kids to school, and somehow the parents that are driving. So public service is the best work of life. There's no easy answer, but we got to keep fighting for it. Thank you.
Okay, Phoebe?
First, I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Jimenez for representing Foster City on Assemblymember Pappin's e-bike. It's great that our voice is reflected and that we should continue to keep this conversation around e-bikes and safe streets going. It was mentioned Black History Month already. This is for the shortest month. We have a lot going on. Black History Month. So I encourage everyone to read, watch videos, because Black history is U.S. history and it's world history. It's also Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. I know that there's different organizations, including Cora and other organizations that throughout the year educate teens on safe and sound relationships and what they look and feel like. Lunar New Year will begin February 7th, I think. I should know that because I'm celebrating it. Just getting through one day at a time. John Estalila, sorry if I said his name wrong, he's a newer member of the CSAC. He also recently got appointed to the San Mateo County Arts and Culture Commission representing our district. So we're already putting people in our feeder to the county, so that's great. I'm proud of the students who utilize their, ability to walk out and protest on Friday, but also to those who stayed in class. Everybody has a different way to grapple with how they're seeing the world and how they want their voices represented. I also want to thank the adults, parents, and teachers and staff who supported these students in class and out of class, as well as FCPD and San Mateo PD who made sure our students and adults stayed safe. Vice Mayor Niederhofer and I attended the Council Member Academy, is that what it was called? In Sacramento. There was many different sessions around collaborating with staff, city managers, social media, all different kinds of smorgasbord of things. After that ended on that Friday, I attended the Public Safety Policy Committee. This is a new appointment for me, and I'm proud to represent Foster City's voice because it's mostly law enforcement and ex-law enforcement in that committee, so it's good to be able to represent as a regular community member. And there's several different things that we're focused on. I'll just read them off here. Strengthening climate change resiliency, disaster preparedness, which we talked about already. Strengthening partnerships with the state to improve public safety, and there was a focus on e-bikes. Securing investments to prevent and reduce homelessness, increasing affordable housing, and then expanding economic development tools. So it's really actually interesting to see that public safety expands well beyond what I originally imagined. School board meeting, okay, January 22nd. I want to make sure that I lift this up. The K through 8 school district, that's San Mateo Foster City School District. At the January 22nd meeting, the board discussed plans for placing a school bond measure on the ballot this year. As you know, or you may not know, that the actual state itself doesn't provide the full funding we need, and it's limited for school facility improvements, to repair and upgrade aging school facilities. So that's why they're focused on this measure. So some of the specifics are to update classrooms and labs for science, technology, engineering, and math, restore shop classes, which is great. So people who are interested in those kind of careers, career technical education with more modern equipment, updating 25-year-old fire alarms and emergency communication system. That scares me. Let's get those updated. And other things such as their workforce housing plan. It will be brought back. This discussion will be brought back for potential board approval on February 26th meeting in case anyone wants to tune in or share your thoughts with the superintendent or the school board members. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to talk garbage for a second. 2 points. One of them is when you're disposing your battery disposal, the lithium batteries that are making their way into the black cans has got to stop. What's happening is they make their way onto the floor. The D10 Caterpillar tractors are running across them, and they're exploding and causing damage both to the vehicle, the floor, and starting fires. Now, what do you care? The care is that they're going to have to pay for all this, and that's going to just increase our rates. So all you have to do is make sure you get those into the proper bags and leave them out for garbage pickup. Also, what's going on is there's, in the labor negotiations, the Teamsters and Recology, and they're negotiating, and it's to a point where even this Thursday, we're having a Zoom meeting on updates. So I can't tell you anymore because I don't know any more than that. I went to a celebration of life for Marianne Nyhart. Marianne Nyhart was very instrumental in what was going on at the county. She was very instrumental in CCAG. She was chair when I was a member of CCAG, and her celebration of life was attended by a lot more people and a lot more former council members than you would imagine. On the e-bikes, that after watching Stacy up there and listening to some of the comments, both pro and con, this is going to be a tough nut to crack. I walked away with that because you're going to have we can put all the rules and regulations we want, but I still come back to, how is police going to do anything about it if they're speeding, if they're illegal? And 750 watts is the maximum. So now, how do you know? I mean, is PD going to have a radar gun that's going to say how many watts are coming out of that bike? It's really going to be difficult. And the kids are going to want to speed them up through their own machine shops, if you will. So they're going to be a tough one. Library, on budget. And I understand our market space in the library is progressing.
Yeah, they're going through the submittal of updated plans to the city so that we can get that through the approval process. And so it's in the beginning stages still.
Super. And then I got to do a presentation that Patrick mentioned over at Warnick about primarily addressing the 8th graders, but their parents were there as well. And it's getting that perspective on how to handle life in the big lane, if you will, or reality check, or however you want to couch it. So, Patrick, you have another one?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. One of the most powerful things was the California Highway Patrol actually had a website that gave the distinctions between the classes of e-bikes and gave a test at the end. So hopefully, Stacy, we can encourage the schools to take that little thing, and that would be a non-threatening thing. Maybe they'll listen, maybe they won't listen. But I thought that was really great on the California Highway Patrol that they put a little thing together. So we can get that link. Maybe we can put it on our link, too.
All right.
All right.
And anything else come to mind? All right. Since we're getting out of here at a reasonable hour, this meeting is adjourned.
Did I win?
Was your money back?
I don't think you've officially adjourned this yet, so he could keep this going.